This is an episode of my podcast, Self-Love and Spiritual Growth. You can find links to my podcast in the description below. Thank you for listening. Welcome to Self-Love and Spiritual Growth with Natasha Hynes, where I remind you that you came here to be the light in a dark world. So yeah, sometimes it's gonna hurt. Sometimes it might even feel like you're not gonna make it through, but you can. And you will. You're doing better than you even know. Welcome to Self-Love and Spiritual Growth with myself, Natasha Hynes. Today we're going to be talking about twin flames and relationships of the future, or fourth density relationships. Now, my little disclaimer is, as I always advise people, to trust themselves first. That means using your discernment. And it also means taking what serves you and leaving the rest. So if something that I say resonates with you, feel free to take that on. If it does not, or if you don't believe me, that's totally fine, and you should trust yourself first and foremost. I'm only speaking from the information that I have, my personal experiences, things that I've read or heard online, conversations that I've had with people, and so on. But everyone has their own experiences that brings them their own information that's also valid. I don't have all the information. I am not a professional at twin flames or fourth density or any of that, but I do have a lot of important things to contribute, information to contribute. And the whole point of me doing this podcast today is to share that information with you, because I feel that a lot of people need to hear some of the things that I'm going to say today. I hesitated to talk about twin flames publicly for a long time now. Well, for the past few months anyways, which I'll explain. But I hesitated first. I wasn't really sure what was going on with me. And then the other part of it is that I've always been afraid that if my twin flame heard this, he might think that I'm talking about someone else, and that could trigger him and create a mess. But I think we're at the point now, after some of the dreams that I've had, I think we're at the point now where he gets what this is. So, dude, if you're listening to this, there's only one of you, and so yes, it's you. There's only one person who I have expressed even the remote bit of interest in the past at least 3 years or so. Yeah, 3 years. Maybe a little more than 3 years. So I'm going to start by explaining what a twin flame is and what the difference is between a twin flame and a soulmate. Then I'm going to get into my personal story and what I experienced to give you guys an idea of how I know what I know, and give you some insight into how to know if you're experiencing something similar. So I'm also going to be including signs that you have a twin flame or have met your twin flame or whatnot. I'm going to talk about separation and how to have a peaceful separation, and why separation is actually really just an illusion. It's not, you're never really separated, which I'll get into. Guys, I'm going to get into it. I'm really going to get into it. And I think that it's going to be very, very helpful. There's so much quote unquote advice on the internet about twin flames that is complete garbage, and it confuses people, and it causes so many people to chase the wrong person. It's dangerous. It's dangerous. Another really important thing that we're going to get into today is relationships, where relationships are moving, are maturing, are evolving to as we ascend to fourth density. And why the twin flame concept or experience is a major aspect of how we assimilate that new paradigm into the consciousness, the collective consciousness. So a twin flame is now definitions. Okay, we use definitions to help us understand concepts when we are limited by our 3D consciousness, because we are limited by words and our perception of what words mean. We have to come up with these definitions using words to try to explain to other people what that concept means. It's limited. So a lot of the time we have confusion and disagreements and arguments and stuff like that just because we're not able to communicate efficiently to someone else, and or they're not understanding or perceiving what we intend to say. As we ascend to fourth density, we start having a much better perspective, understanding of what things mean, because we are perceiving with more than just our ears. We're perceiving with more than just words and our limited mental concept of what the word means. We start to perceive empathically, telepathically. We start to have more access to our higher selves, to the Akashic records. So when we explore a concept, we are able to channel in more information to allow us to have a broader perspective of what the true meaning is. So that's one of the major reasons why there's so much terrible information being shared online, because they are old, limited perceptions. I'm just going to give another disclaimer here that some people are going to be triggered by what I'm going to say, and they're going to be upset because it's not what they believe. And like I said before, take what you want and leave the rest. So if you are not interested in accepting the concept that I'm about to express, that's fine. You don't have to rage quit this podcast though, because there are other bits of information throughout it that you may be very interested in hearing. But a twin flame is the word that we use to describe a soul that has separated itself into two aspects of itself. Some might say polarity or whatever, but I don't think, I'm not totally sure if polarity is really the right word to use when you're talking about this kind of a separation, because if it was, then we wouldn't be blended within ourselves, because the soul is separating itself into the divine feminine aspect and the divine masculine aspect. However, it is only leaning towards that aspect or polarity, because within the divine feminine is also a divine masculine energy, and within the divine masculine there's also the divine feminine energy. And part of the process on this planet, being incarnate as two separate beings, as two separate people, is to come to a balance of those energies within yourself. I'm not going to dive deep into this concept in this particular podcast. However, I believe that our understanding in third density of the divine feminine and divine masculine energies is limited and perverted. So we don't really understand what those energies represent, how they connect with each other, and so on. Because we've been brainwashed with so many belief systems about what it is to be masculine and feminine that are not cohesive with their true intended purpose or what they truly represent, which we can totally get into in another episode. But for now, let's stick to the TF stuff. So, a soul has separated itself into two parts, one representing the divine feminine, one representing the divine masculine, and they incarnate into two bodies. This can be a man or a woman, it can be two women, it can be two men, it doesn't really matter. Most people nowadays are using the word twin flame to call these people, so that's why I'm using them as well. However, there is another application of the word where the two aspects of the soul, the feminine and the masculine, could be called or are called twin souls. So they are one soul divided in itself into two people. They are twin souls, and that when they come together, that is the twin flame. That is the flame that is created when those two halves combine again. Soulmates, not twin souls, soulmates, the old-timey word that we used to use for that person, that one particular person that was right for you, the soulmate, our soulmate. Soulmates, now we apply that word to mean someone who you have, a soul that you have had previous incarnations with, previous interactions with in other lifetimes, and maybe before incarnating or whatever, where you have built a familiarity with them. So when you come into contact with them, they feel familiar to you, they feel comfortable to you and with you. And it's in that comfort and familiarity that you may feel more bonded to them than the average person, and therefore make the assumption that they are the one person for you. However, what we understand now is that there are many, many souls who you have had previous lifetimes with, previous interactions with, that would give you the same or similar feeling. And you will most likely have relationships with many of these people throughout your lifetime. In fact, before we incarnate, we decide who we're going to meet at which points in order to learn which lessons. And I could go really, really deep on how that works, and timelines and freedom of choice and all that in another podcast. So you have many soulmates. You have one twin soul or twin flame. Some people might argue that your soul could have split itself into multiple twin flames or twin souls, and that is possible. It's possible, and that brings us back to what is the purpose of a twin flame or twin soul. And that is why the aspect of relationships is so important. It's gotten to the point where I'm watching TV and I'm watching these people, these full-grown adults, having all this drama about their relationship or so-called relationship, and being ultra dramatic and emotional. And yes, this is TV and it's made like that for a reason. It's entertainment. However, it's reflective of a lot of relationships that go on in real life. I've said this in a previous podcast that most people who think that they are in love, again, trigger warning, are not actually in love. Most people who believe that they love someone don't actually love them. They are addicted to them. They are dependent on them, codependent. They desire them. They're infatuated with them. They're attached to them, but they don't love them. The problem is with why so many people don't love other people but claim to is because, again, the definition, we don't know what love is. partly because of these TV shows that are telling us that this drama is normal and it's okay, and this is how you're supposed to act in a relationship. That you are supposed to be chaotic and dramatic and controlling and jealous. None of those things are expressions of love. And that is what the twin flame dynamic is here to teach. Imagine being connected to someone and you cannot get away from this connection no matter what you do. In today's society, if we get involved with someone and their appearance starts to decline and we feel like we're not attracted to them anymore, so we have to move on to someone we're more attracted to, or we have financial troubles, so we get into huge arguments and we're right and they're wrong, and eventually if they don't ever come around to seeing that we're right, then we will leave. We get divorced, and by the way, I just want to say that I am all for divorcing people when need be. I am all for breaking up with the wrong people. I am not at all saying that you should stay in an unhappy relationship. I'm trying to illustrate a bigger point here. We discard people is the point that I'm trying to make. People are disposable. Relationships are disposable. Instead of working on them and fixing the issue and becoming more loving and understanding and compassionate and getting a hold on our own issues and beliefs and emotions and healing ourselves, we point the finger at other people, at what's wrong with them and why they are making me feel like this. Instead of understanding that no one can ever make you feel anything. They can do things, they can say things. You always have control over how you feel about anything. So the point I was trying to illustrate with those examples is that when someone's not meeting our expectations, we get rid of them, which is not possible in a twin flame dynamic. It's not possible. But there's a flip side to this. So I don't want you to think that what I'm telling you is that you should once you get into a relationship, you need to stay there, even if you feel like that person is wrong for you, that it's all your fault and you should fix yourself. Not at all what I'm trying to say. A twin flame is the perfect person for you. But the point is that you get extremely triggered being with or around that person. So every time you get into a fight or you think that you have an expectation that they're not meeting or whatever, you can't get rid of them. I mean, technically you can in a 3D aspect, like a lot of people are doing, which is causing them to be living in misery because they're living in what they call separation. What they call separation, because they are pointing the finger at their twin and they're saying, you did this to me. You made me feel like this. You are not meeting my expectations. And what that does is, whether it be with a twin flame or anyone, is it gives us a cop-out. It allows us to stay broken and to run from our own feelings, our own trauma, all the things within us that we need to heal, and we need to face the pain in order to heal them. I talk about this all the time. That's why most people have so much trouble getting over their insecurities and learning to truly love themselves, is because it hurts to turn around and face your ish. And there is only one way to get to the point where you are healing and overcoming your ish, you need to face it. You need to go through it. You need to face your pain. And what most people don't understand, because they're too afraid of feeling that pain in the moment, is that once you feel the pain, if you know what you're doing, have the proper guidance or whatever, you go through that pain so quickly to get to the other side, and then that pain dissipates, it disappears forever. Whereas the other option is you keep running from your pain, but you're always dragging it behind you. So you are going to be in pain. You are going to feel shame. You are going to feel fear forever and ever and ever, because it's always attached to you. So people run and run and run, and they try to run away from this thing that is literally attached to them, instead of turning around, having the balls to face your pain and go through it and get rid of it for good. Your whole life will change. It's like we want to ascend, but what we don't understand is that all this pain and trauma and all these issues are all baggage. They're all heavy baggage, literally, where it's like you're carrying, obviously not literally, but you know what I mean. You're carrying these super heavy suitcases, luggage full of your own crap, and you can't ascend because they're weighing you down. If you want to ascend, you need to let go. And once you let go of all these heavy things, you pop up like a cork. But you have to make that choice to let go. And that generally entails turning around and facing your crap. So that's why so many people struggle with this twin flame, twin soul concept, is because they are running from their own crap. So you're probably thinking that it's all their fault and they're the one who's not facing their crap. They're the one who's running, the runner and the chaser. And this also is an illusion, which I'm about to get into. You are quantum entangled with your twin flame. If they are truly your twin flame, you are quantum entangled with them. And the more you interact with them, the more you meld with them, the more you can feel them, and that you're connected psychically and empathically and so on. However, your entire life on this your entire life on this planet, you have been quantum entangled with this person. That's why your true twin flame will have a parallel or parallel-ish lifetime. You may have noticed that around the same time you've both experienced similar, I want to say things, but that's super vague and not really going to help. So I'll give you an example. Please understand that when you experience something and they experience something, we're talking about core similarities. We're not talking about surface similarities. So at some point in my life, I realized that my father was a narcissist, that no matter what I did, I couldn't please my family, and I decided to emancipate myself, to free myself, to liberate myself, I decided in that moment that my life would change and I would start living for who I really am and what I really wanted, okay, to a certain extent. Because, I may have leveled up as we do, but then you level up again and you level up again in different points in your life. What my TF would have been experiencing around that time is not that his father is a narcissist and he can't please his family and blah, blah, blah. He would have experienced the realization of who he was living for and what he wanted in his life and who he wanted to live for, or how he wanted to live more for his own joy and happiness and liberate himself. Okay, so it's the core. And that's the quantum entanglement. And that's the most important aspect that you need to understand in order to get through what we call, or what is called, separation. Whoever tells you that you need to work on yourself and that you can't do anything to help your TF and that they have to do the work on their own, even if you do all the work and then it takes them 15 years more to do their work, that's not true. Okay? Do you do everything exactly at the same time? Probably not. I'm sure there's a delay in some or many or most whatever cases. But you are quantum entangled with this person. So when you deal with your core issues, it helps release it in them because you have the same core issues. And I'm going to give you another example of this because I had a conversation with someone the other day, which was important for me to have, and the universe orchestrated it. Because I see so many people who want to believe that they're in a twin flame relationship. There are a lot of people who are, but there are also a lot of people who want to believe that they're in a twin flame relationship, but what they're actually in is a codependent relationship, or they're in a relationship with a narcissist or otherwise abusive person. And again, I will get into this, but because I see this, I'm always skeptical, or I have been always skeptical of people in ultra dramatic separation. Don't worry, I'm getting to why my revelation in this. But people who live in an ultra dramatic separation, as in I was skeptical that this was actually a twin flame relationship and not just an abusive one. So the universe orchestrated a scenario where I had this conversation recently with this woman. And as I'm talking to her, she's telling me about this ultra dramatic situation that she's in. And I'm getting intuitively twin flame, twin flame, twin flame, twin flame. And I'm like, gosh, it can't possibly be a twin flame thing. This is pure chaos. Look at this. But they're like, keep telling me twin flame, twin flame. I'm like, okay, fine. So I asked her, did you ever feel like X? Did this ever happen to you? Did this ever happen to you? And it was yes across the board. And the way she was talking, I'm like, well, how do you know he loved you back? And she would describe things and I'm like, okay, you know what? I think this really is a twin flame thing. And that's when it occurred to me how so many people are missing this information and they're suffering because of it. And I needed to create this content because if you can accept this, if you can accept your responsibility, if you can understand that what is within you is within them and vice versa, then you have control. Then you have the ability to heal your union. Let's use that word. So without getting into too many details, because I want to respect her privacy, but she was telling me about this guy that she's in love with and how much of a hot mess he is. About drugs and whatever else, right? And I looked at her and I realized she was hammered while she was telling me this. I love you, girl, if you're listening to this, but like this is important to hear. It's important to understand because this could alleviate all of your suffering. He is dealing with the drug situation. And listen, I have been addicted to drugs. I have been, I guess, borderline alcoholic. I have been a smoker. I have experienced lots of addiction, lots of crazy, chaotic stuff in my life. So I'm not speaking from this outside perspective that doesn't get it, that doesn't get how hard it is. I get how hard it is. But I also get that addiction is a way that we cope with underlying problems, with underlying pain. No matter what the substance is that you're addicted to, no matter what the action or whatever, because it doesn't have to be drugs or alcohol. People can be addicted to all kinds of things. It's always a coping mechanism for an underlying pain. And that pain starts leading us to his core issues. And looking at her, I realized she's coping with her core issues in a very similar fashion. They hurt themselves and they hurt other people to cope with the pain. And all she needs to do to heal the union, to help him overcome his addictions, is to go within herself and heal her core trauma. So that's what you can do. If you want to stop suffering, all you need to do is focus on yourself. You need to look within. You need to ask yourself what it is you're running from and focus on healing that. And as soon as you heal it, it releases in them. Sometimes instantly, sometimes maybe there's a delay. So whenever I have a trigger, when I'm triggered, I feel a personal responsibility to get on top of things as soon as possible, because it's not just me being affected, it's him. And I love him and I don't want him to be in pain. And also he's doing things that are very important. And so I don't want to screw up his schedule. So I work on it immediately. And that's probably one of the reasons why I've had such a peaceful quote unquote separation. Another major aspect as to why I've had such a peaceful quote unquote separation is because I realized that we are not actually separated. And I have worked on myself for many years, and I believe so has he or whatever. And I've gotten to the point, I'm honestly, I want to say lucky that I met him at this point in my life, because if we had met 4 years ago, things would have been a disaster. But I think that it's not really luck, because we planned this before incarnating, just as you planned when you were going to meet. So I was able to get to a point in my self-awareness that I know who I am and that I am true to who I am. Because there was a time in my life that I was not true to who I am, and many of you are experiencing that now. So the lucky part is that I had the opportunity to grow out of that and start expressing myself authentically and being true to who I really am before meeting my twin flame. After that obnoxious relationship, quote unquote relationship, with that covert narcissist that I use as the story I tell when I tell how I started getting into teaching about self-love and what the trigger was in my mind where I realized I wasn't respecting myself and loving myself. So after that, because I started focusing on myself and my mission, and because I wanted to really start loving and respecting myself, I stopped dating anyone at all for years. I did not date anyone, sleep with anyone, crush on anyone for 2.5 years. And a large part of that, The fact that I wasn't interested in anyone tells me that this was meant to be in my life, because I think a lot of the time when we crush on people, when we like people or are drawn to people, it's because that person represents some kind of a karmic lesson to us, or some kind of a, if you don't want to use the word karmic, some kind of a lesson that we need to learn for our own soul growth, or to be able to incorporate in our teachings and our mission or whatever. So since I wasn't crushing on anyone and I wasn't interested in anyone, part of that told me that part of the reason was because I'd finally gotten to a point where I'd learned enough about relationships or human interaction or self-respect and self-love to not need that anymore at the time. And another part of it was that because I was starting to love myself and respect myself and be authentic and true to myself, I realized that I don't have to sleep with anyone for the rest of my life. That I can if I want, but accepting the fact that my true nature is that I don't want to sleep with anyone who I don't feel connected to, and who I trust, and who cares about me and I care about them, and all of that, the whole package. That sleeping with anyone who does not meet that standard is a complete waste of my time and energy. If I want an orgasm, I can give one to myself in a lot less time. It saves me so much trouble. If anyone, I wanted to find someone that I truly felt connected to. It's the best word I could possibly use. Someone you get and they get you. Like I've explained this in a video. They're your best friend and you trust them and you're attracted to each other and all that, and you just it feels right. It feels like connection. What I didn't understand at the time that I was describing this was that I was describing a twin flame connection. I didn't realize that I was one, but now that I understand that I am one, looking back at my life, I realize that there were signs the whole time, but I didn't understand that until now. Dating anyone who I didn't feel connected to, who didn't feel like the right person, who didn't feel like my best friend, who didn't make me feel like I could have conversations with them for like 13 hours at a time. Why would I bother? Like, it doesn't have to be 13 hours at a time, but I mean, when I interact with people on a regular basis and I could take it or leave it, you know what I mean? And relationships take a lot of energy and a lot of time. Why give that commitment to the wrong person just to have someone in your life? So that's another important part of this, is the ability to be alone. The ability to be on your own without feeling lonely or that there's something missing or whatever. That truly enjoying being on your own. And I was really enjoying being on my own. I was am super passionate about my mission, about their life is so much. I know that because the feelings that we get from desire and infatuation and love and all this are so intense that we think, or we can think, that that is the be all and end all of everything there is to experience on life. And yes, love, authentic, real, divine love really is what makes the world go round. However, there is so much more to do and to experience in life while you have this lifetime on this planet, because eventually you're going to die. And maybe you'll go off to another planet and have different experiences, or maybe you'll come back in this lifetime, but you won't remember having this conversation, and then you're going to do it all over again. But there is so much more to experience in life than getting into a relationship. And if you're not focusing on that, focusing on yourself, on your healing, on your growth, focusing on service to others, on what you can bring to the world, on what you can create, if you're not, then you're not living. And you're searching for a relationship to distract yourself. So for 2.5 years, I was focused on myself, my growth, my happiness, learning to truly love myself on all levels unconditionally, learning to be of service to others to my full capacity, focusing on my mission and creation, all those beautiful things that I just mentioned. I started to get dreams, really annoying dreams. I started to get dreams of meeting a quote unquote soulmate type, like meaning the old school version of the word where that one perfect person, I started getting dreams of them. However, it was always a different person in my dream, but the feeling, the situation, the scenario was always exactly the same. This man would appear. He always looked different, but the feeling, the experience, the scenario was always exactly the same. It was always an instant feeling of, where have you been my whole life? I have missed you so much. So we'd sit for a few moments in this overwhelming feeling of love, and then he would turn around and walk away. He would just leave. It was always the same. Guy comes in, oh my God, I miss you, I've been waiting for you. He turns around and walks away. Not like he was rejecting me, but in an acknowledgement of, yes, I remember you too, and then leaving because he had to leave. But at the time, I was extremely annoyed at these dreams because I had absolutely no interest in meeting anyone. I was not into it. I had been so hurt throughout my life that even though I was focusing on my healing, my heart was still closed, and I was not interested in being hurt again or giving anyone the opportunity to hurt me again or wasting my time. So I was really confused as to why I kept getting these dreams like over and over again. I'm like, what is going on? It was, I think, maybe for a year. Then at some point I did a QHHT session where I asked the practitioner to ask me why I was getting those dreams. And while I was under, instead of asking the question that I gave him, why is Natasha getting these dreams? He asked me. He said, Natasha wants to know when she's going to meet her soulmate. Oh my God. On the inside, because when you're in that state of mind, yes, you have control over your body, but I was trying to stay in state. And that question pissed me off so much that I was almost willing to break state and just like jump out of bed and be like, I'm done with this. But something was telling me just like, calm down, breathe, and we'll get through this. But even though the guidance that I was channeling had a very calm energy, inside my psyche in the background was freaking out that he asked me, and I wanted to scream out like, that's not what I said. I don't want that. That's not what I want. And my channeled self or whatever in the session said that it was to prepare me for what was to come. I can't get too far into the details of how this started because it gives too much away, but at at some point, months after this QHHT session, long time. So I'm like 2.5 years into my not giving any F's about anyone, not wanting to date or not being interested in anyone, no one, stay away from me. And I got into a DM conversation with someone. This was about 6 months ago or so. And it was originally supposed to be a very just professional, dry interaction. And I started catching feelings like real quick. And this is someone I've never met in real life and I've barely spoken to, but it was like immediately I was like, who are you? Like, who are you? You are the best person ever. And I started catching feelings, and I got really upset that I was catching feelings because I was happy not having feelings. I was happy not having to worry about being hurt or being betrayed or being lied to or whatever. I was not happy about potentially feeling vulnerable. So I started getting really upset, and I started to push back on the feelings. What I was feeling was so strong, so fast that I got really scared and pissed. And as I was trying to break that connection and push back on the feelings, I felt like I had just broken up with someone. It was a weird feeling. Not weird like I'd never felt that feeling before, but weird in terms of the intensity. It was to the point where I've never met this person. We exchanged a few DMs and I am feeling so hard for them that I had a beer every day just to take the edge off of what I was feeling because it was so intense. And after about a week or maybe longer, maybe 2 weeks or so of having a beer every day to deal with my feelings, I realized, okay, either I'm going to become a major alcoholic or I need to deal with this. I need to stop pushing back on this and understand what is going on. And what I felt was confused. I felt like my tiny little frozen Grinch heart was melting and then bursting open. Like the tiny little hardened pebble of a heart that I had left in my chest burst open into this big, bright light full of love for everything. And I felt from my root chakra to my crown chakra like an energy burst whooshed through my body from the bottom up, as if I was lit up or like on fire from the inside. Still at this point, not understanding what a twin flame relationship was, because at the time I still didn't know what twin flames were. I didn't understand what it was, and I disregarded it most of my life because I'm just like, oh, that can't be real. It's probably just a bunch of desperate people trying to cling to the idea that they have the one in their life or whatever, and they just need to get over themselves or whatever. Well, so I'm feeling this crazy intensity, and I'm feeling like I'm on fire, and like I have love for the world, and like I love this person, this man, with every particle of my being. I remember saying that the love that I felt for this person was so intense that if he told me that he enjoys murdering babies, I would be like, I still love you. Let's work on that. Let's just talk about how we could maybe stop you from doing that. Why do you feel the need to do that? But I wouldn't be disgusted. I wouldn't run. I would just be like, I still love you, even though you're a terrible person. I told you how I had been dreaming of meeting some form of a soulmate for like a year over and over again before I met him. But once I met him, I dreamt of him every single night for like 5 months. and then almost every night afterwards. Like, at some point, enough stuff should happen to you that you can't doubt it anymore. And if you do doubt it, you can just ask for more validation and you'll receive it. But at some point, you are so overwhelmed by the crazy stuff that happens to prove to you that this is not your average feelings or your average crush, that then you can settle into the idea that this is your twin flame. And that where you should focus is your healing, so that you can have a peaceful journey, a peaceful, non-chaotic, non-dramatic journey. The reason I keep saying that there is no such thing as separation or quote unquote separation is because people are making the assumption, or they're deciding that they are separated from their twin flame because they are not in what we would consider a traditional 3D relationship. So if they're not living with you, or at least like dating you and exclusively and all this stuff, that you're somehow separated. And that brings me back to the reason it's important to get to know yourself, to love yourself, to respect yourself, to become authentic, and to get a life. You know, get on your mission. Do what you're passionate about. Experience life. You want to travel. You don't have to wait to be in a relationship with someone to do these things. And that's why when people think that they're in separation, they're making it up in their head. They're deciding that they're in separation. I'm not in separation. My twin flame lives in another country. We almost never talk, but we're not in separation because you're connected. You're connected. If it really is your twin flame, you're connected. When you're in an actual 3D relationship and your partner leaves the house to go grocery shopping, are you in separation? Did you break up? Or did they just move to a different location? So just because you're not together physically doesn't mean that you're in separation or that you're separated. The real problem is that we fear that if they are not committed to us and exclusive with us, then that means that they might get into a relationship with someone else. So we want that validation, or we want that commitment from them. And that's when we consider ourselves in union or not in separation. And here's where we get into relationships of the future. And no, I am not talking about how we're all going to be polygamists, okay? If you are a polygamist, that's your thing, that's cool. I am not. I am a firm believer in monogamy, in the reality that we are in right now. As I've said earlier in this podcast, that it is my nature to be extremely faithful to one person. Because I know that at my core I'm extremely faithful, and I only want to be with someone I'm connected to, and I have the ability to be alone and not need anyone, these are parts of my core that I know that my person, my twin, is also at the very least a lot like that. And he has expressed that that is who he is as well. So I have nothing to worry about. And if for some reason he chose to be with someone else, then I would be supportive of what makes him happy. But I also know that if he chooses someone else and he is authentically my twin flame, because we don't have the whole we're already married, blah, blah, blah kind of obstacles, okay? That's something else that we'll talk about at a different time. But the basics are here. They still apply. If he was to choose someone else, I would know that if he really is my twin flame and we really are connected, he is my person and I am his person. As much as I love him, he loves me back. So if he was to choose another person, he would not really be happy if he really is my twin flame. If he is really happy with another person, then he's not my twin flame, and I support that as well. Because I don't need to be with him. If he is not my twin flame, and I think that he's my twin flame, and in the end it happens that he's not, and he's happy with another person, then that gives me the freedom to walk away because I'm not permanently connected to this person. If he is truly permanently connected to me, then I know that the only way he will ever truly be happy is with me, as I will only truly be happy with him. Meaning we can be happy on our own, okay? What I'm using that word to imply is getting into a relationship with someone else isn't going to make things better. And that brings me to another point. When gurus, so-called gurus, self-proclaimed professionals tell you that you should date people other than your twin flame, I want you to understand, I'm not saying that you should not date people outside of your other than your twin flame. What I'm telling you is that dating other people is a form of running. And after listening to this whole podcast, I hope you understand that to some degree now. So if he chose someone else to be with and he was happy, then I would know that I have the opportunity to walk away and find someone else that I can be happy with. If he chooses someone else and is not happy, it is a form of running. He is running from his feelings, from his pain, from me, etc. And like I explained earlier, quantum entanglement, if he is running from his pain, there is an underlying core belief or trauma that needs to be healed. I can heal it in myself, and it will affect him. It will release it in him. So if we are truly connected, once I heal myself, he'll come back because he'll realize he's not happy and he'll come back. If I choose, instead of healing myself, and I choose to go date someone else because I want to distract myself from how I feel jealous or miserable or heartbroken, or I want to get revenge and show him just as bad how he hurt me, so I'm going to show him how it feels, because if he loves me, then he'll be just as upset when I date someone else. Okay, I understand all those feelings, guys, but that's not helping. It's only creating a feedback loop. He hurts you, you hurt him. He hurts you, you hurt him. Okay, or vice versa with the him-her thing, because I'm speaking from my perspective. I apologize to any men that might be listening, or any lesbians that may be listening as well. And if you end up focusing on healing yourself, and then after all the healing you do, he doesn't come back, then he's probably not your twin flame. And if you focus on healing yourself and you find out that maybe he's not your twin flame, or he didn't come back or whatever, some of the fear that we might have in putting the focus on ourselves and healing ourselves is that, well, what if I do all this work? Am I just wasting my time? But you're not wasting your time, because after you've done all the work, you did all the work. Guess what? You've healed. You're ascending. You've let go of so much of your pain. so much of the things that you were clinging to that were hurting you. You'll feel better. You'll be happier generally. And once you've truly gotten to the point where you've healed the good majority of your trauma, or at least the big ones that were holding you back from being able to form a drama-free union with someone, you'll realize that you don't need him anymore. If he comes, great. If he doesn't, who cares? If you find someone else, okay, whatever. It doesn't matter anymore. It's hard to believe that that's a possibility when you're in the mind state that you're just absolutely in love with this person and just need them to come back to you, or need to be in union. You need them. It's hard to understand that you will get to a point where you just don't care anymore. And it's also scary because it can feel like if you ever get to a point where you don't need them, then you won't be happy, because it's so blissful. It feels so good to be in love with someone that the thought of not needing them or not caring feels like you'll lose that bliss, that you'll lose out on the opportunity to feel how good it feels to be in love with someone. But speaking as someone who has gotten to that point, I can tell you that that is not what happens. What happens is you still feel love for that person, tremendous love for that person, from the core of your being, unconditional love for that person. But you've let go of all the pain, of all the heart-wrenching pain, the fear, the chaos. So it's exactly where you want to be. And this is where relationships are going in fourth density. They're going to a place where you don't need anyone. And you don't discard people. And you're not living in chaos and drama and constant fear of losing them or being hurt and betrayed. It's so peaceful. It's what love and relationships were meant to be, where you're in a partnership where you contribute to each other's lives and you take responsibility for your own and your own feelings. So that's why the twin flame dynamic is so important, because when you are this connected to someone and you can't run from them, you have two choices. You are in pain until you die, or you learn to face your pain and heal it and let it go, and you develop a mature 4D relationship. And every couple of twin flames, or people in general, who adopt this mentality and come into a peaceful, mature 4D union are helping anchor that mentality, anchor that paradigm into the collective consciousness. And that is where we're going. This is the relationship of the future. I hope this podcast helped you. I'm going to be talking about this kind of topic again in the future, because clearly I have a lot to say about it, more than I even realized. If you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher, or Google Play. You can also find it on my website, where you can find other free things like my Self-Love for Empaths course. It's free. It's a video course. There's an audio version as well. I have a 5-day self-love challenge, and you're going to find a whole bunch of other stuff on my website that are free resources. Lots of fun stuff to do. Check out my website, natashahynes.com. The link is in the description, and you can find me on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. Thank you so much for listening, and I will see you next time. Bye.